Everyone, this is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have a special guest on my channel, Dr. Velma Bagby, and we're going to be talking about the No One Wants. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you.
Now, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Velma Bagby. I am an author, became an author in 2018 at the age of 64, and I am now releasing my 14th book. I am not only an author, I'm an ordained minister, a motivational speaker, and I'm a certified Christian dating and relationship coach. And I'm excited to be here. I've been married for 48 years, and I have two daughters and 3 grandchildren. So I'm excited to share with you today.
All right. Now tell us a little about your story and the story you created.
Well, the story is about a young lady by the name of Veronica Dawson, and she's a millennial. She's a PK, pastor's kid. She set out to set goals for herself, a self-starter, go-getter. She accomplished her college goal, check off the list, and she checked off the list the fact that she got a job and she's well into her career, very successful. And the third thing she wanted to check off her list was the fact that she wanted to be married by the age of 30. Mm-hmm. Well, since she bypassed 30, she's now 32. She's rushing through men trying to find the perfect husband, but she's going about it the wrong way. And her father watches her make these mistakes. And so he decides to pray about it, to ask God to show him how to intervene. And the answer he gets is that he should use what he knows. What he knows is that he's an expert fisherman. They don't say fisherman now, they say fisher. And so he takes that, invites his daughter on a 2-day fishing trip where he creates 5 metaphorical stories to share with her what he's seen in her dating habits. 4 fish represent the type of men, the wrong men she has dated: the catfish, the sturgeon, the salmon, and the pufferfish. But only 1 fish represents what he hopes she will aspire to have as her perfect catch, and that's the goldfish.
Okay. Now, what research was required to write this book?
Well, one of the things I had to do is I had to find out about fish. When I realized that's what I needed to look at, I called my brother, my oldest brother, who's an expert at fishing. And I asked him what was his favorite fish, tell me about how you catch them. And as he begins to describe how the person fishing catches each of these different fish, he explained the type of personality of each fish and why the person fishing had to use a certain line, a certain pole, had to go to a certain place in the water, why a certain bait. And as he described it, it sounded just like men. It sounded like some of the personalities I've seen over the years and having conversations with women. It sounded just like men. So it was just perfect to integrate the fish with men and show the similarities in this story.
Okay. Now tell me, who are the main characters in the story, and tell us a little about each one of them.
The main character is Veronica Dawson, the 32-year-old who's making the mistakes, and her father, Grayson Dawson, who is a pastor and also is the one that does the intervention. And so what's unique about this book is I have over 17 family members and friends whose names are the names of these characters in the book. And so it's really unique. When my family found out the topic and what I was writing about, and friends, they volunteered their first name for some of the characters. So I was excited about that. So that's something different about it as well.
Okay. Now, which characters was most challenging to create and why?
I think my most challenging was the pufferfish. It was just really sad, but needed to be told how women sometimes fall into aggressive relationships. And the story has a beautiful way that it ended. Thankfully, this woman was a powerful woman and knew how to take care of herself. but there's so many who don't, and so many who don't get out. I think that was the most heart-wrenching one that I had to tell. And there's some snippets of stories that I am familiar with that's real. There's in the pufferfish story where the wife puts her child in the oven. That's based on a real story. And so in those moments where I had to insert something sad in the stories, but it was profound enough to make sure I shared it so others could be touched by it, was important. And I think the pufferfish was the hardest one.
Are there any of the characters, you did tell us that there are characters that are, well, let me ask you this. Are there any characters that were based on real people that you know?
Yeah, for instance, Reverend Stevie Sturgeon. Stevie is my cousin's name, but the personality of that character came from my watching one particular minister's behavior as I was growing up as a teenager, because I kept saying, wait a minute, last month he was dating this member, this month he's dating this member, what's going on? And even as a teenager, I recognized, well, that's not appropriate. And so that character came from who's the person that nibbles, just nibbles. He was sent to a variety of places to preach and take the message, and he made the church money, but he nibbled everywhere he was sent. And so that character came from that experience. Okay. The church itself has some elements of the church I grew up in. The one story was about the young lady whose friends were trying to maneuver the offering line, trying to maneuver through the offering line to make sure she met up with a particular guy in the church she wanted to meet. Well, that offering process was the way it was in the church that I grew up. It was very large, and that's how they did the offering back then.
Okay, can you tell us about the 4 fish and their characteristics or personalities?
Yeah, there is the catfish who loves garbage. And I had a question that asked me, someone asked me recently, what about the farm-raised catfish? I talked to my brother about it, and the follow-up to that question is catfish is catfish. They love garbage, farm-raised or not. Okay. So they love garbage, and that's that personality of that guy. He loves garbage, and that's his life, and he loves his way of living. Then there's the salmon, who does not like to get caught. Fishermen hate them because they'll break a line trying to get away. So that explains the type of guy that you try to force into a commitment that won't commit at all. And the thing about the salmon is that he always has other fish he's balancing on the line. So you could be thinking that this guy is perfect because of how he's treating you, but he's a salmon. He's got other fish as well. Non-committal. I talked about the sturgeon. The sturgeon likes to nibble. Fishermen or fishers say that they can sit all day with what they think is a bait on the line, but their bait has been long gone because he's sneaky, and he sneaks up and slowly carefully nibbles it off till the person fishing doesn't know that the bait is already gone. It's been gone a long time. So that's the sturgeon. And then the pufferfish, they describe the pufferfish's face as human-like. Human-like eyes is very captivating and beautiful until you agitate him or cross the line with him. Then he puffs up 3 times his size, and he has these little splinters coming out of his body that's very poisonous. So he's pretty dangerous when he's angry. And then the goldfish, I'll not have any spoilers in explaining him, but he's definitely the catch that you want.
All right. What scene or chapter in the book is your favorite, and why?
My favorite was when after all the father does for his daughter, and I think Grayson as a pastor was really gracious towards his daughter. Some pastors can be really hard-nosed with their family because people judge them. They act like the family should be able to walk on water. And that's not the case. If you're not expecting every member to walk on water, so why put that kind of measurement on a pastor's kid or anyone in leadership in the church? As my mother was in leadership as well, but she was just over the choirs and that kind of stuff. But still people were looking at us like we should walk and carry ourselves a certain way. So I think he was very gracious with his daughter. He was patient with her. And I think we just have to be careful of not being so judgmental and give people a chance to get to the place where they can walk the way they should. And I think that's what he did with his daughter. So my favorite was in the end and how he handled her at the end of all these stories, how he encouraged her at the end and said, okay, now work on yourself. And here's the things you need to do that. Don't discuss or even think about looking for a mate until you have done the work on yourself. And that's my favorite part.
Okay. Who is your target audience for this book?
I've heard some people, and since this has been discussed, talking about I need to give this to my young person. Well, I'm not talking to anybody in high school because I met my husband in high school, but at the same time, we were prepared differently in the 70s. Young people are not prepared like we were back then. And this is not for a young person because I don't believe in dating for marriage while you're at that age. You should be dating socially just to have fun. That's what we did. It was for fun. And so this is technically geared towards any woman, young woman who wants to focus sincerely on who God will reveal as her mate. It's important for her to prepare herself first because her goal, dating with intent, means to date with a goal, with a purpose. And if your goal is to be married, then why are you wasting your time with a catfish, a pufferfish, a sturgeon, or a salmon? You should be looking for that goldfish, but you must prepare first.
Right. What do you hope readers will take away from the story?
I hope they would come away from some kind of nugget, because what I talk about is things that used to be taught to us, whether it was in school or in church, or we always had these wise seniors around us in our lives. And you're fortunate to have your aunt and people like that. My aunt was 85, and I just appreciated having them. Well, we don't have that now. And fathers used to be the person who would vet that guy and make sure he was the right person for you to even begin seeing. We don't have that. Many men don't know how to do it, and many men are not available, not in the home. So having a kind of group of wisdom and wise counsel around you, which is what the scripture tells us we should have, is important. Dating in secret is dangerous. That's crazy.
Yes.
You should have somebody that can help you to vet the person. And so I hope that what they will come away with is nuggets about what worked for us and what still works, because the dating process we practice now is only 100 years old, but the dating process and the tools that God gave us in his word is thousands of years old. And it's the tried and the true.
What does the title mean?
The catch no one wants has to do with Veronica, the main character, because she's been dismissing the guy that she finally gives an opportunity to. She's been dismissing him because she had in her mind the kind of guy she thought she wanted. She had the physique she thought she wanted, the build she thought she wanted. She had in her mind what he should look like. And to me, you've already removed God from the equation, because we should be looking for him to give us guidance on who that person should be. But when you got a list that only has conditions, conditions change. I don't have that Coke bottle I had when we met. And so what happens when the Coke bottle is gone? If my husband had relied on the Coke bottle and the conditions change, will he still want me? Is the question. And it's the same with men. If you get so caught up with what they look like, what happens when all of that changes? And I know a personal story where the woman just left her husband because she said, I didn't sign up for this. Well, conditions. And that's when you use conditions as your way of making the decision rather than looking at something, his positive attributes, where you can build a life with someone.
What did you learn when writing this book?
I really learned a couple of things. One is my ability to really tell a story, because this is the first fiction that I took the approach to try to mimic what we see in scripture. There's a lot of storytelling in scripture, and we know Jesus was a master storyteller. And so I tried to take the same approach where he used common things to help to teach something that was deep and profound, so that you weren't hitting the person over the head with it. You were
Right.
just trying to share something deep with them. And I hope that's what people walk away from with this book, that they walk away with nuggets that maybe they didn't see, aha moments like, wow, I know a catfish. Wow, he's acting like a sturgeon, so that they can begin to recognize these things too.
Okay, you touched on wise counsel in the and also in the book. Who are the wise counsel?
The wise counsel can be just one person, because they represent or replace what we used to have in the family unit. That old aunt. My aunt was 85 when I went and talked to her about some rough patches I was having in my marriage. And I remember the most profound thing she said was, baby, if you let this go, look how many years you put into this man, which means that we do affect how men develop and change. She said, and then you're going to hand it over to somebody else. I said, oh, now that you put it that way, I'm not handing over my work to no one. And so it was just really wisdom to kind of help me to see what I was facing. And so we don't have that anymore. Sometimes it was a pastor, sometimes it was a senior woman in the church, a mother in the church. Some of that is not there anymore, because some of the senior women in the church don't want to be senior women. They want to be young too. So wise counsel are those people or one person who can really speak truth to you when you're facing a particular situation, who will really help you vet this person so that you're parading them around those people that you choose, so that they can pick up on things that you can't see because your heart is too close to it, but they can see because it's not about their heart. They can pick up on the things that maybe you don't see. So scripture talks about us older women to teach the younger women. That's wise counsel. And so any of that, whether it's a woman, whether it's a male, pastor, a friend, sister, cousin, someone who can help you through the process. And hopefully all of them do not have to be married, but you want some who know the process. And there could be some that are seasoned and wise, even single, but you have to be careful who you select.
Right, right. God won't give you a broken glass to cut your lip. Explain that.
My grandmother says that, and what she's saying is, if you really trust in God and asking him to help you in the selection process, he's not going to send someone broken. Now, if you trust him. Now, if you're not listening and your wise counsel is not, you're not paying attention to what they're telling you, and you decide to go off on your own, then you want the broken glass, you're going to get cut. But what she's saying also is, you should not be the broken glass. Fix yourself, prepare yourself, get rid of, the scripture says, lay aside every weight and sin, which says some of this stuff we're carrying around is not sin, but they're weights and they're in the way. Old relationships, I hear Grace, my dog, old relationship and past hurts, all of that stuff has to be laid. And you even have to forgive. Even if you don't talk to the person, you still have to release him and release yourself, forgive yourself. Okay, I made a mistake. Let me forgive myself too. So put in the work of releasing all of that stuff, so you're not a cracked glass, a broken glass.
Right, right. Now explain the 40-day rule.
40-day rule comes from scripture. Scripture uses the number 40 as the number for tests and trials. So in your getting to know this person and determining if this is someone you want to continue with, he has 40 days, you have 40 days, but he specifically have 40 days to prove to you what his intent is. And really, if you're using the date with intent questions, you can get to that in the very first conversation, because some guys will wiggle around and try to avoid those questions, which is a huge red flag. Others will make an effort to answer them. Your answer is what you want to know, so you can determine if this is a good match. And I tell women a lot, just because he seems like a good guy doesn't necessarily mean he's yours. He could be somebody else's. He may not be your match. And so you have to take the time to really, during this period, especially the initial period before your heart gets caught up, but he's so cute, but he does this so well. All of that stuff doesn't matter when you're trying to choose a lifelong mate. So you just want to use those 40 days, and he has 40 days to demonstrate that he at least let you know what his intentions are.
Okay. Carson the catfish. Now, I've seen guys sitting at the back of the club wanting the easy and the thirsty women. He wants you to come up to him, which I think is a red flag. Why
Yeah.
should a woman not approach a man?
The scripture says it's a man who chooses a wife, a man who findeth a wife. That term "findeth" says it means in the original language, the man who meets his wife. In the very first dating book I wrote was Your Adam is Asleep Until God Opens His Eyes. When I did that study to have conversations with my daughters, there was something I learned in that. When God presented Adam to Eve, his eyes were closed. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know where she was. Even in our story, the man who pursues Veronica, he pursues her in a respectful way, but he's praying to see if God confirms her. So he's praying too, just like you're praying for the mate. And so in doing so, you want to make sure that you're hearing from God regarding that person. And so Carson, wait, I'm trying to get back to my question. The catfish.
Carson.
Okay. Carson the catfish. I just want to make sure because I'm telling the other stuff. Carson the catfish, he is not, remember in the story, when I described the catfish, he will not go after anything to eat. He sits and waits for it to come to him. Those are the guys who think that they are the prize and not you. Every woman should always remember who she is. God calls her good because everything he created in the garden, he said it was very good until he looked at Adam and said, wait a minute, that's not good. It's not good that man should be alone. And so he made the decision to make Eve, not Adam. Adam never was lonely because he had God fellowshipping with him in the garden. And so these people who claim that Adam was alone, was lonely, that's not true. And every man who's single should be satisfied with his relationship with God until he's ready to find his mate. And God will open his eyes like he did with Adam. He opened his eyes to Eve because he had prepared Eve for him, just as he will prepare us for the one that he has for us. And that man's eyes will open. I remember asking my husband his opinion about that. He said, every man knows who she is the moment he sees her. He may not declare it in that instant, but he will at some point as he gets to know her more to validate that she is the one for him. But he knows the moment he sees her. In the case of the catfish, he knew she was a regular catch. When he knew she was vulnerable because she was in that area that he hung out in, and she was out of place. He knew she was out of place.
Now, Carson kept asking her questions, so he would not have to explain his work at nights. That's a red flag.
Yes. Yes. When you're asking a person, what do you do? Oh, I work nights. That's what he said. Yeah, he works nights at the clubs, scheming and trying to trick and get his hands into anything he can, because that's his survival and that's his life. And he doesn't apologize for it.
Okay, earlier you talked about conditions. What are conditions?
Conditions are the things that Veronica looked for. The conditions are those things that change. I want him 6. I had a condition on my prayer list too. I said, Lord, I want him 6 feet and I want bold legs. Now, what has that got to do with building a lifelong mate that is 6 feet and bold legs? Nothing. And God has a sense of humor because my husband has slewed feet and he's not 6, but he's 5'9". And sometimes I joke about the fact when I'm holding his hand in prayer, I'm looking down at his feet, laughing, God, you have a sense of humor. I said bold legs, you send me slewed feet to let me know you're in charge of this. And so that's what's important. We look at conditions. We look at race. I want him tall, dark, and handsome. I want him to have a voice like Isaac Hayes, just deep baritone. We have these crazy things. Those are conditions because conditions I want him to make just as much money as me. Well, conditions change and it can flip. He'll make more than you later on and you make less. So putting those kind of barriers or conditions on who he should be doesn't make sense. So conditions are just that. They change. Tall, size, assertive, not assertive, career. Because in our story, the Veronica dismisses the guy who was a contractor. What does that have to do with his personality, his character, and his positive traits? Nothing. But we do that.
Okay, the ex-wife of the Pucker.
Oh, yes.
I felt her pain. That
Ooh.
scene stuck with me. A mother would go through any lengths to save her child.
Yep. That's right. When she put that toddler in the oven to keep her husband from hitting him and allowed him to hit her instead, that's a mother who's protecting her child. But the key is, the moment she got pregnant in that story, he made it clear he didn't want any child and said he would allow her, that was the other thing, allow her
Wow. Mm-hmm.
to have the child as long as his needs were continued to be met. Can you imagine that kind of mess? And so 9 months, she's still with him, going through this process, almost lost the child. She could have left before that, but she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was when, so she had gotten accustomed to being hit, obviously. It was only when he tried to hit her son that she woke up, said, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that some people don't come to that place soon enough.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any updates on Veronica after the catch, like maybe another book per se?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, but it probably will be after this next book, because I'm working on a book that's based on Proverbs 14:1b. A wise woman builds a house, but the foolish woman tears it down. And it's called The Women Who Tear Down the House. And it's kind of connected to the same theme, but it's talking about the women this time. Just like women look at conditions, men look at conditions too, because many of these women in this story, they're beautiful and very well put together on the outside, but horrible hearts, horrible people. So they too looked at conditions and what happens to their lives as a result of that, and their children. It's miserable for them and their kids. And so they make the same mistakes.
Okay. Tell us about the homework basket.
The homework basket, because this is a fiction book, when Grayson provided his daughter with all these tips and tools for her to study and read to work on herself, I couldn't put that information in a fiction book. So I decided to take it and put it inside a homework basket or pamphlet in a sense. It's a very nice size, but I said this would be a way for people who want to know what was in there to get it themselves, who want to go ahead and study and answer questions. And there's questions about each of those characters and the women who either dated them or married them. All of that is in there, as well as the things he included in the homework basket. And one thing that I think stands out in that homework basket, he gave her a PDF of over 60 scriptures that talks about a fool. It warns about marrying a fool, how not to be a fool. Even then that scripture I just gave you said about the women who are fools. Mm-hmm. All of those things. I said, if he used 60 scriptures to tell us about a fool, there must be a reason. Mm-hmm. He's sending us a message about a fool, and it's not just April 1st.
True. Mm-hmm. Do you have any events you'll be attending for the remainder of this year?
Well, I've got quite a few things that are coming up, and I'm hoping that I can continue to promote the book. I do have a clubhouse that's coming up, which you're hosting. It's coming up in May. There'll be 4 Sundays in May. We're discussing a few podcast opportunities, and I was invited from yesterday to come to Sacramento to speak to a group of women, but I decided not to go this month, so they're going to put me on in June. So I'm just working on a few other things and hopefully get the word out there about this book. I got other interviews with Cyrus Webb. Don't have my calendar with me, but if you want to know more, you can always go to my website at https://drvelma.com and check to see where I will be next, and make sure you join.
How can readers find you and your book?
Well, one of the ways would be my website. I am also available on Instagram. I'm available on Facebook, both my business page, Dr. Velma, and my profile page. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Twitter. And I'm soon on Clubhouse.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
No, that's all. I think I appreciate your questions because you really went deep into many of the discussions about these characters. I'm just looking forward to really talking more about them.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Queenie.
You're welcome. Again,
have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Again, this is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.